If you had a childhood, you definitely watched and had a lot of fun with some episodes of Peppa Pig. But did you catch all the little hidden mistakes in the episodes of the world's most famous pink pig? In the Peppa Pig episode about nursery rhymes, we can spot a continuity error that few people noticed. When the children leave school to sing Danny Dog's song, you can see that they form a single line, with Danny, Peppa, and Pedro at the front, followed by 4 of Peppa's friends, and only then do we see George. However, after Danny starts singing and we see the children's line again, it seems someone in the animation team thought it would be cooler if George appeared before several other children, ending up right behind Susie and Pedro. This is what I call cutting the line. And that's just the first of the 15 mistakes we've highlighted for this video, so jump on board as Cinewave is starting another round. In the Peppa Pig episode about fairy tales, we see the pig family walking to Grandma Pig's house. On their way, they encounter Mr. Wolf, and as usual, he's wearing a purple outfit with a shirt and tie underneath. But when they arrive at Mommy Pig's parents' house, Mr. Wolf is there having lunch with everyone, and at that moment, you'll notice his shirt and purple tie have vanished, as if by magic. Moreover, there's another mistake, this time involving the Pig family and the Wolf's family's lunch. We see Grandma Pig placing a huge amount of potatoes in the middle of the kitchen table. And then, the scene focuses on Peppa's grandpa as he mentions how much he loves potatoes. The scene widens to show the whole kitchen again, and we see that each character now has a potato on their plates and forks. However, both the serving dish and the remaining potatoes, because there were a lot, have disappeared. Honestly, I think Mr. Wolf wasn't kidding when he said he was very hungry, because the only explanation for this is that he ate about 10 potatoes and the dish along with them for everything to vanish so quickly. And to top off the episode, which seems to be a fantasy tale from start to finish, in the next scene, the forks and potatoes the adults were holding simply disappear. It really looks like Peppa has her own fairy tale, the tale of the ghost potatoes. In the episode Masks, we see Madame Gazelle using her class to help the children make masks for themselves. And in this episode, we can spot a very strange logical error. When the class begins, we can see that the clock shows 9 a.m. However, just a few seconds later, when she shows them all the materials and the children sit at the tables, if we look at the clock again, it shows 10 a.m. Seriously, it was literally just a few seconds. It doesn't make sense that an hour passed in Peppa's world just for saying those few words. If you, like us, didn't understand anything about the clocks in this part, comment below with #mud, which is where Peppa Pig loves to jump. But another thing that doesn't make much sense in this same episode is that when the class begins, we see the children sitting on the floor while the teacher talks about the masks. However, as if by magic, tables and a variety of materials suddenly appear for the children to make their own masks. And all this happens in the same space, as we can tell by the presence of the same clock and the cabinet with the letter blocks. Speaking of the letter blocks in Peppa's classroom, we notice something intriguing involving them. From the beginning of the episode, when we see the children making their masks, the letter blocks are on the edge of the counter inside the classroom, with a toy and a cup full of colored pencils beside them. However, after all the children finish their masks, notice that the toy and the blocks have suddenly swapped places, with the toy now on the counter's edge and the blocks moved to the other side, showing a continuity error that our sharp eyes couldn't miss. Now let's talk about a logical error that isn't exactly an animation or continuity mistake, but it still made it onto our list. In the episode where we see Peppa and George celebrating Danny's dad's birthday, we see that the birthday boy gets a boat trip as a gift. So everyone happily and quickly heads to the canal to get on the boat. The detail is, if you stop to think, you'll notice that they all get in the car and leave, but the dog family's house is left with the door wide open. When they get back, the house is probably going to be full of ducks and other animals, so that's definitely a mistake. Never do this at your house, okay? In the same nursery rhymes episode that we've already mentioned in this video, we noticed another mistake. We see Madame Gazelle with her guitar singing various songs with the children, but then something extremely bizarre happens. When we see the whole class, notice that the window with the numbers is a certain distance from Peppa's teacher and her friends. However, when the scene zooms in on Madame Gazelle's head, we can see the corner of the window as if it's right next to the kindergarten teacher's head, which doesn't make any sense since that window corner shouldn't appear at all. In the episode Parachute Jump, we notice once again that Peppa's show doesn't always make a lot of sense. When Madame Gazelle, along with several children, goes to congratulate Mommy Pig for volunteering to jump out of a plane to raise money to fix the school roof, we see her standing alone at her front door. However, after she accepts the challenge, as if by magic, all her family members suddenly appear behind her, including Daddy Pig, who hadn't even appeared in the episode until that moment, clearly showing that making sense isn't exactly a top priority for Peppa's show. And if you've made it this far, you're definitely a fan of cartoons like us, so be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos. We have new videos every day. Moving on to the episode Miss Rabbit's Taxi, we notice another continuity error. When the pig family calls for a taxi, we see Miss Rabbit working as a cashier at the supermarket. At that moment, there are only 3 people in the queue: Mrs. Dog, Mr. Fox, and Mrs. Cow. After running back and forth several times, Miss Rabbit eventually returns to her job at the supermarket, and when she arrives, we can see that the number of customers waiting has increased significantly in just a few minutes. If you look closely, you'll notice that Mrs. Pony is now in front of Mrs. Cow. And since Pedro Pony's mom isn't pregnant, it seems she probably cut the line just like George did in the Nursery Rhymes episode.
Coincidence? I think not!
Now, in the episode where the entire pig family goes to the swimming pool to swim and have fun, we notice some mistakes that few people have spotted so far in the show. When the rabbit family arrives at the pool, we see that Peppa and George are already there, and next to Peppa's younger brother, we can see one of the pool's corners and the ladder. But when Peppa meets Rebecca and Richard Rabbit, if you pay close attention, you'll notice that as soon as we see them, they are already in the water, and even stranger, they are farther from the pool ladder than Peppa and George were just a few seconds earlier. And only after swimming a bit do they get close to Peppa and George. That definitely doesn't make any sense. But hold on, because that's definitely not the most nonsensical thing that happens in this episode. We see Peppa and Rebecca in a little swimming race, and as soon as they start, we can see that George and Richard are left behind, and both babies are in the pool. The detail is that as soon as they reach the pool's edge, guess who's already there waiting for the 2 girls? That's right, George and Richard. And more than that, they even had time to fill a watering can and splash their sisters with water. But how did these 2 boys manage to do that in such a short amount of time? This is definitely one of the great mysteries of Peppa Pig's world, probably because it's just another logical error in the show. In the same episode, we noticed something that left us very intrigued. Throughout the episode, from the very beginning, we can see that the doors of the changing rooms followed a color sequence starting with blue, then green, yellow, and red. However, by the end of the episode, we can assume the animators completely forgot the order of the changing room doors' colors, so they reversed everything, putting the red door first, followed by yellow, green, and blue. It's almost as if we're now seeing the doors in a mirror, where the reflection shows everything in reverse order, just like how the colors of the bathroom doors ended up.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
And in the episode where Peppa's family goes to Grandpa and Grandma Pig's house to eat pizza, we can see that George really likes pizza, but not so much the vegetables, judging by the face he makes when he's served leaves, 2 pieces of tomato, and 1 piece of cucumber. But maybe he likes them more than his expression suggests, because when we see the little pig's plate again, we notice that instead of 2 slices of tomato, there's now only 1. Could it be that Peppa's little brother ate the vegetable when none of us were looking? That would be a good explanation. And despite finding several mistakes in Peppa Pig, I have to admit that it hasn't made me like the animated series any less. On the contrary, it makes me want to watch it even more to see if I can spot new mistakes. And since we really enjoy your company, if you look at your screen right now, you'll see we've picked out 2 videos for you to watch and stay with us a little longer. Just click on them, and fun is guaranteed. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.